What's going on, guys? It's Jake. We're back in for another YouTube video, and today we're going to be talking about the exhaust cutout, and we're actually going to go ahead and get it wired up to the car. But before I did that, I wanted to say thank you guys for the recent support on the last video. It seemed like a lot of you guys really enjoyed some of the things that I went through. So if you like that kind of content, be sure to drop a like, hit that subscribe button, because we're always going into stuff like that. So today, let's jump right into it and get to talking about this exhaust cutout. So when you get it, it's just this piece right here, as you can see, and it's already been welded into my pipe. So you guys are gonna have to take care of that on your end, take it to some type of shop to get it welded in, and it's just a straight piece of pipe. So I'm sure you'll be able to find a spot in your mid pipe. The only note is, if you have a stock exhaust, you're gonna have to get a smaller one. This is a 3-inch. I believe stock exhaust on these cars are 2.5 inch. So you're gonna have to do something like that to make it fit a stock style exhaust. Anyway, once you guys get that welded into the pipe, I want to go over how the motor will work and how it needs to be wired up. This is actually a relay. So the things that comes in the kit is obviously the exhaust cutout, the motor for the exhaust cutout, and then an extension piece. So here's an extension wire for your wiring, and then here is a relay. And the reason why it has one on one side, that's going to be your 12-volt power going into the relay. And then you have two on this side, to where if you did have a car that had dual exhaust, you could have two exhaust cutouts plugged into the same relay and ran off the same key fob that's also included when you get the kit. So I want to go ahead and hook this thing up to power and show you guys with the key fob how it works here on the bench before I do some wiring on the car and get it installed. So first thing I want to do is hook this thing up to power. So this piece right here originally did have another plug on the end of it. I ended up cutting that off and just stripping the wire so I could test the motor. So that's what we're gonna do right now, just to show you guys. So I'm gonna hook that up to the 12-volt side of the relay, and then I'm gonna hook our power up to our power on a 12-volt battery, and then I'm gonna do the same with the negative on the battery, just for test purposes, to show you guys how this thing works. Now that we have it hooked up to power, I could technically plug this directly into here, but I'm actually going to use this extender piece because this is what we're going to be doing on the car, because where this is mounted is about right behind the passenger seat, and so I'm not going to realistically be able to get keyed power to the relay that close. So we're going to put this extender piece on here and then mount the relay somewhere else. But just to show you guys kind of how it comes together, we'll put that extender piece there, and then we'll plug this in here. And it doesn't matter which one gets plugged into. If I did everything right here, you should see the valve open and close. So let's check it out. Okay, so B is open on the little key fob. There's an A and a B. So B is open, and then you're gonna hit A to close it. And what's really cool about this thing is that I could open it just a little bit if I wanted to and let some of the exhaust out, but not let it really scream. And then I can open it all the way, or I could shut it all the way, obviously, and you can adjust it anywhere in between. So that's how it works. I'm not really sure how you would wire this thing up for a switch rather than this key fob, and I'm not sure how long this thing is gonna work once it's on the car, but a big determining factor on that is where I'm going to mount this relay and how much weather the relay sees, because I'm sure you could buy another relay online, but this is the first part I see failing in the whole operation here. Maybe the motor too, but regardless, it's cool. I'm going to go ahead and get the mid pipe on the car. Now I'll check in with you guys when I'm under the car trying to figure out where all these wires are going to get their power and where they're going to be mounted. So let's get right into it. All right, guys, so I'm in the car right now, and as you can see, I have the shifter bezel kind of out of the way a little bit to get to the back of the cigarette lighter. So typically this cigarette lighter is going to have this plastic cover on the two terminals, and as you can see, it's just two spade terminals. And so what we're looking for to make this exhaust cutout work properly is a keyed hot. So we don't want it to have power all the time, so we don't want to run it off of the starter or anything like that. We want to have a keyed hot. So what we're going to do is actually plumb into this spade on the back of the cigarette lighter. So if I go ahead and key the car up, you can see that it goes ahead and fires up there. So we know that that's a keyed hot. Now that we know that that is a keyed hot, we can go ahead and shut that off. You see that it shuts off. So what we're gonna be using to get the power off of that in a proper way is we're gonna use one of these jumper spades. So as you can see, we're gonna hook this up to the spade on the back of the cigarette lighter, and then there's 2 spots for a spade. So I'll splice another spade terminal on our main power wire that's going to go to the relay, and then that will hook up to our main power going into the cigarette lighter. So that should be fine. I don't see it causing any trouble as far as the fuses being blown and stuff like that. There's definitely multiple ways to do this, but this is just the easiest way because I'm actually going to go ahead and keep the relay under there and you won't even see it or anything like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that wiring wrapped up for this thing, and I'll show you what it looks like when I get done. So let's get into it. All right, so I have everything working with the key fob and the exhaust cutout, but I want to show you the wiring before we go any further and test it. So what we got going on here is our cigarette lighter, and as you can see, I just have a jumper. So that's where we're getting our power, our 12-volt power source for the exhaust cutout. And so I also had to have a ground going to the relay. So chassis ground here, we actually went ahead and put it on this little stud here. So just a ring terminal there, and ran our ground over there. So now that we have power and ground from behind our cigarette lighter going to our relay, and I have the little extension piece plugged into the exhaust cutout, and I have the key on. Remember, you gotta have this as a keyed hot. So we have the key on, power going to the relay, into the exhaust cutout. We have our controller here. So when you click it the wrong way, it clicks the relay. So if it's open and you click the open button, it makes a noise like this. But to click the closed button, it's gonna be A. So B, A, B. So this is a really cool feature. I'm super excited to hear the car once it's running and how it's gonna change the noise. If any of you guys are wondering, this is mounted like right behind the driver's seat. I didn't want to do it any closer to the front of the car because sometimes it can really hurt your ears if it's super loud. So I wanted to make sure this was behind the passenger seat. So that's kind of where it is as far as where it's mounted under the car. Now that I have all the wiring pretty much done as far as getting power to the exhaust cutout, now we just have to put the relay in its home, and we also have to run this wire down to the exhaust cutout once it's mounted underneath the car. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and try to mount this up onto the downpipe, and then after I do that, we'll figure out how we're gonna get this extension piece down to plug into the exhaust cutout. And what we're probably gonna do is go ahead and once we plug this in, we'll go ahead and put some shrink tube around this. Since this is gonna be exposed to the weather, I wanna make sure that it doesn't corrode over time. Luckily, the other stuff and the other part of the wiring is gonna be in the car, so I won't have to worry about that stuff getting corroded, but I do wanna make sure that it doesn't happen to this because we do not want this thing failing over time. So that's what we're looking at right now. Hope this helps. I'm gonna go ahead and get this mounted up, and then we'll figure out how to get that wire down to it. We don't want that wire in a place where it can get burned up, so we'll figure that out and we'll show you guys, so stay tuned. So I got the mid pipe piece mounted up here. You can see the exhaust cutout. I actually have it wire tied to these stock looking holes, and you might not be able to see it, but I actually drilled another hole right there so that way I could wire tie it. And I did that in 2 places. You can see right there and then down there. So it's wire tied in both of those places. I plan on putting a shrink tube on there once I confirm that everything's gonna work properly. So I can unplug it right there, put shrink tube on it, and then make sure that no water gets into that connection. Let me lay under here a little better so you can kind of see where it goes through the tunnel. And I had to drill another hole there on that little bend in the frame. And you can see I kind of cut a little slit out of the shifter bezel trim. It's just a piece of rubber. So I plan on putting some silicone in there so that way no water can get up through there. But that's how it's routed right now. You can see it's kind of close to the drive shaft, but it actually is secured in so many places that there's no way it could ever come over and touch it. So I'm really happy with how the wiring came out. I was kind of afraid underneath the car here because there's not a lot of places to wire tie things, but got it done. I'll meet you guys up top and we'll show you what everything looks like, so stay tuned. So right here is where it comes through. As you can see, just a little slit in there, and I'll fill that in with some black silicone, and it comes through there underneath this little trim piece. And then there's some extra wire, and I have my relay sitting up in there. And so everything is plugged in nice and right. I'm gonna go ahead and put the shifter bezel on, and then I'll go over to the driver's side where I have the trim off, and we can kind of look at everything from the side, and you can see how it's all routed. So back over to the driver's side, you can see everything kind of with this trim piece off here, but everything is wired up pretty nice. You guys already know how it's wired onto the cigarette lighter. It kind of wraps around, hooks up to this ground, and then hooks up to the back side of that relay. So everything's nice and right there. And then this wire here is the one coming from our exhaust cutout, and it is also plugged into the relay. So now if I key everything up, it will go ahead and work. So that is how I did it. It might not be the best way to do it, but that is how I got it done. If you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like, hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to do my best getting some videos out here for you. Hope this one helped, so stay tuned.